Hello everybody, welcome to AimLIS second live class. Today's our topics are catalog purpose, structure and types, physical forms of catalog, normative principles of cataloging, general theory of library classification. The catalog purpose, structure and types of physical forms of catalog. Meaning of library catalog. Cataloging is the core of every library, a basic tool of retrieval in any document collection. The word catalog has been derived from the Greek expression katalogos. It means a list, register, or complete enumeration of something. The list can be books, maps, or other items arranged in definite systematic order in a library. The purpose of library catalog. The main objective of library catalog is to aid readers in making use of the collection of the library by providing author, subject, title, and other approaches to the collection. The primary purpose of a library catalog is to serve as a guide to the collection of materials. Basically, it reveals to the users the document or non-document materials contained in the library and aids them in finding out whether the materials of their interests are available in the library or not. In other words, a library catalog serves as a key to the library collection as well as location or as a retrieval tool. The structure and types of physical form of catalog. The physical or outer form of the catalog that relates to its external shape, size, appearance of the stationery to the used for recording entries of document, that is card, and furniture or equipment to stock the stationery of bibliographical entries of document of the library. The physical forms of library catalog can be broadly studied under two groups, conventional and non-conventional or modern form. Conventional form. The conventional physical forms include bound register or ledger form. In this form, the entries of document of a library are written by hand in a bound register or ledger. Pages are set apart for different letters of the alphabet. These alphabets are arranged alphabetically. Minimum information about the document such as author, title, edition, accession number and class number is given for each book. There may be a separate register or authors or titles or subject. Next, printed book form. The printed book form of library catalog is one of its typical forms. These types of library catalog are prepared conforming to all the standard principles and rules of cataloging with cross references and multiple entries. Next, SIP or loose leaf form. SIP form or library catalog is also referred to as loose leaf form. A SIP form of catalog is one in which slips or paper are put into a loose leaf binder and bound by some mechanical device into a volume. This is a loose leaf binder format which provides the convenience of handling a book. In the SIP form, each entry is made on a separate slip, but there may also be more than one entry on each slip or page. The entries are either handwritten or typed. Next, card form. In this form, the bibliographical elements of every document are recorded on a single card. This method of representing every document on a single card is known as the unit card principle. These cards stand in card trays or cabinet with a punched hole of about half a centimeter from the bottom for inserting a locking rod. 12.5 into 7.6 centimeter is the universally adopted size for a catalog card. Next, non-conventional or modern forms. Visible index form. Visible index catalog consists of stripes mounted on a frame or a card held flat, hinged, and with the edge of each card protruding so as to make the heading visible. The cards are usually of the size 12.5 into 20 centimeter. The card is inserted into a hinged cramped pocket, exposing the top portion. These pockets are held in a specially prepared steel cabinet. Next, microform catalog. Microform catalog may either be in the form of a microfilm or in the form of microfiche. Microfilm can be on a single reel, but generally it is housed or rolled in a cassette containing 2 reels so that the film can be wound to forwards or backwards within the container at the time of consultation. Microfilm readers usually allow the rotation of images through 90 degrees. Machine-readable catalog. In a machine-readable catalog, entries are rendered in a format which permits input and storage on magnetic tape or magnetic disk for manipulation in a computer. Mark format, Unimark, Common Communication Format (CCF) are standard formats. Experiments with the use of computers for library operations such as cataloging had their origin in the United States of America. It was in the year 1966 that a project named Machine Readable Catalog Mark in short was launched with the active cooperation of the Library of Congress. The project was completed in 1967. The greatest contribution of Mark project to the library services was the designing of bibliographic record format. Normative Principles of Cataloguing. In the context of cataloging, normative principles are those rules, laws, canons, and principles which govern the preparation of catalog codes and various types of entries, choice of headings, rendering of headings, description, and other things related with the cataloging of documents. Dr. S.R.Ranganathan is the first person to whom the credit goes for enunciating, propounding, discussing, and analyzing normative principles for cataloging. There are following 9 canons. Canon of Ascertainability, Canon of Proportions, Canon of Individualization, Canon of Short Heading, Canon of Context, Canon of Permanence, Canon of Currency, Canon of Consistence, and Canon of Recall Value. Now, Canon of Ascertainability. Ascertainability means which is traceable. According to Ranganathan, the information provided in the entries of catalog must be ascertainable and not imaginary. This canon prescribes the use of the title page and overflow pages as the main source of cataloging information for the choice and rendering of the heading of main entry and specific added entries. Implications of Canon of Ascertainability. Classified Catalog Code (CCC) fully regards the Canon of Ascertainability. All the rules make provision to prepare the entry under the heading available on the title page. Chapter empty of CCC prescribes rules for the choice of a heading. For example, in the case of pseudonym, author, if the title page gives the pseudonym, author entry is made under pseudonym, and if real name is also given in subordinate matter, it is also given the heading section. Canon of propotence. The potency of decide the position of an entry among the various entries in a catalogue should, if possible, be concentrated totally in the leading section, and even there it should be concentrated as much as possible in the entry element. Earlier, while writing a letter, the potency was given to city. It was written in capitals, it was underlined, someone wrote it in English and Hindi. Now, potency is given in pin code. Implications. In CCC, it is fully respected. Main entry of CCC is fully potent. Every work of every author gets individual number, and there is no need of seeing other sections of the main entry, while in AACR tour the main entry is author entry. Cross-reference entry. In cross-reference entry, the leading section has only a little potency. A good deal of potency necessarily flows into the third section, which gives the locus, and in this way violates the canon. Subject analytical in dictionary catalog also do not respect the canon of propotence. Class index entry and C also subject entries. Class index entry satisfy fully, as there cannot be two class index entry with the same heading. All the potency in respect of arrangement of entries or of a class index entry is totally concentrated in its leading section. Section directing words and third section containing class number are totally important. Book index entry and name and title entries. CCC and AACR 2 are both the code satisfy this canon, but AACR 2 violates in the case of government publication. Like CCC, India Education under bracket Ministry of, and AACR. In CCC, this name written by full capital letter, and AACR, India and Ministry of Education. Canon of Individualization. This canon prescribes that the name of any entity, be it of a person, a geographical entity, a corporate body, a series, a document, a subject, or a language used as the heading of a catalog entry should be made to denote one and only one entity by adding to it the necessary and sufficient number of individualizing elements. Implications. Both CCC and AACR 2 have provided rules for individualization. CCC prescribes rules JB32, JB3, JB41 dealing with the individualizations of geographical entities. Rules JF5 prescribes year of birth and death as individualizing element after the secondary element of the personal author. Canon of short heading. This canon prescribes that the decision for choice and rendering of a heading for the main entry and added entry should be based upon the possibilities of the users' approaches to the library catalog. No element in a catalog entry should be included which is not relevant to its purpose. If there is no likelihood of an approach by any of the users, readers, or library staff looking for a particular choice and rendering of a heading, it should not be used as a heading. Implications: change the title approach. The need for preparing entry for change title is due to this canon. Example, Book Village India was later published under the title Village Uplift in India. If both the books are purchased in the library but only one is available when a reader approaches the library, his demand can be fulfilled even any one of these titles is available. Pseudo-series. The concept of pseudo-series owes its origin practically to this canon. What are the plays of Shakespeare's with variant editions are available in the library was asked, which lead to the concept of pseudo-series. Merger book and its demand. In 1953, the phenomena of two or more books merged into one book was noticed by Ranganathan. Canon of short heading prompted the framing of a rule to meet such a problem. Canon of Context. This canon prescribes that the rules of a catalog code should be formulated in the context of number 1, the nature of cataloging features of the book, prevalent in the mode of book production, the nature of organization of libraries prevalent in regard to the mode and quality of library service, and the coming into existence of published bibliography and particularly bibliographical periodicals, and the fourth, that the rules should be amended from time to time to keep step with the changes in the context. Implications: in the light of this canon, Ranganathan suggested to omit the bibliographical details such as page, size, imprint, etc. from the main entry of catalog in open access system, as readers can see this information personally if needed. There is no need to of giving annotation. 6. Canon of permanence. This canon prescribes that no element in an entry, the heading in particular, should be subjected to change by the rules of a catalog code except the rules themselves are changed in response to the canon of context. Implications: if the information once given in the heading section of an entry is changed frequently, it will involve much cost and labor. For example, a author has written one book under one pseudonym. According to Canon of Ascertainability, it will be rendered under that pseudonym. Later on, his another pseudonym becomes familiar. If we are changing the heading of the book under recent pseudonym's name, we are not only violating the canon of ascertainability, but the law of parsimony is also violated, as we have to change the code of a main entry and added entries. It is why the alternative names deserved by canon of short headings are left to the care of cross-reference index entry. Canon of currency. The principle that the term used to denote a subject in the class index entry of a classified catalog and in a subject entry of a dictionary catalog should be the one in current usage. If we follow the canon of currency, it means we are violating the canon of permanence. So, this conflict was resolved by a partition of a field. canon of currency has its way only over subject headings or class index entry, and canon of permanence over name heading, that is, name of a person, geographical entity, or corporate body. Canon of consistence. CCC defines this canon as the principle that number 1, the rules of catalog code should provide for all the added entries of a document to be consistent with its main entry, and number 2, the entries of all documents should be consistent with one another in certain essentials such as choice, rendering, and style of writing and heading and other sections. Implications are: observance of this canon ensures a great deal in uniformity in catalog, that is, main entry of all documents in dictionary catalog is author entry in all cases. The added entries of document should be consistent with the main entry. Inconsistency of any sort will spoil the whole structure of the catalog. Canon of recall value. Canon of recall value devised by Dr. S.R.Ranganathan in 1969 is a result of developmental research conducted at TRTC, Bangalore. Though it was in the mind of S.R. Ranganathan at unconscious level since 1938, when Ranganathan devised other canons in his book Theory of a Library Catalogue, however, it was given in present form in 1969. Now, general theory of library classification. A theory refers to an organized set of principles which provides the basis for further investigations into and the development of a subject. It explains the what and why of the existing phenomena. It qualifies the subject to be accepted as a discipline. It provides a scientific basis for a subject and brings respectability and status to it. Descriptive theory of library classification. In the beginning, there was no theory, only practice was followed. Practice gave rise in descriptive theory. The descriptive theory distilled out of the contemporary schemes held its way until the early 1950s. Their methods were empirical. The development of the descriptive theory is attributed to several scholars like Brown, Richardson, Ham, Sayers, Brace, and Ranganathan. The period between 1898 and 1937 witnessed the genesis and development of this theory. First of all, J.D. Brown. J.D. Brown was the English librarian whose contribution to the general theory of library classification was small but significant. He brought out 3 different schemes of classification. The first of these 3 was developed in 1894 jointly with J. H. Quinn and was known as Guinea-Brown scheme. In 1897, Brown independently brought out another scheme and called it adjustable classification. In the year 1906, Brown published the first edition of his subject classification, the scheme for which he is mostly known. E. C. Richardson. E. C. Richardson was the first librarian of Hartford Theological Seminary, USA. The latter took over as a librarian of the Princeton University Library. In 1910, he published his book Classification, Theoretical and Practical. It was the first textbook on classification, which later influenced W.C.B. Sayers. W.C.B. Sayers, William Charles Barwick Sayers, an English librarian and teacher of S.R.Ranganathan, made a remarkable contribution to the development of the theory of classification. His theory of book classification first appeared in 1915 under the title Canons of Classification. He expanded the outline of the theory contained in his book in three overbooks like Grammar of Classification, Introduction to Library Classification, and a Manual of Library Classification. H.E. Bliss. Henry Evelyn Bliss devoted his entire active life to the intensive study of the art and the science of classification. In addition to the articles which he contributed in library journals, his theories and practice and principles of classification were expanded in his first work titled Organization of Knowledge and System of Science 1929. He also published another basic work on the theory of library classification titled Organization of Knowledge in Libraries and the Subject Approach to Books. These two basic works convey to us the fundamental principles of classification which Bliss later tried to apply in his System of Bibliographic Classification BC, which outline was first published in 1935. Dynamic theory of library classification. Such a theory enables us to organize emerging new subjects and the already unknown subjects in their proper places in a scheme of classification without disturbing the already established sequence. Its approach is futuristic. The dynamic theory of library classification developed by Ranganathan between 1948 and 1955 was presented for the first time in the second edition of his Prolegomena to Library Classification published in 1957. Dr. S.R.Ranganathan. Dr. S.R.Ranganathan was instrumental in revolutionizing the theory of classification, mapping of universe of knowledge. Ranganathan visualized the problem of transforming the multi-dimensional universe of knowledge into a unidimensional one. This was the fundamental and perennial problem faced by the classificationists in the design of schemes of classification. To meet this problem squarely, Ranganathan formulated the general theory of classification, which was guided by basic laws, laws of library science, canons, principles, and postulates. Basic laws. Ranganathan formulated 6 basic laws like law of interpretation, law of impartiality, law of symmetry, law of parsimony, law of local variation, and law of osmosis. Laws of library science. Ranganathan's 5 laws of library science are: books are for use, every reader his or her book, every book its reader, save the time of the reader, a library is a growing organism. These were formulated in 1928 and were first published in the book The 5 Laws of Library Science 1931. Fundamental categories. A subject may manifest itself in any one or all of the fundamental categories. He postulated that there are 5 and only 5 fundamental categories, named time, space, energy, matter, and personality, PMEST to sort. Facet sequence. The 5 fundamental categories form the following sequence when they are arranged according to their decreasing concreteness PMEST. Round of energy. Ranganathan also postulated that the fundamental category energy manifests itself in one and the same subject more than once. These manifestations of energy are called round of manifestations. Similarly, the fundamental categories personality matter may manifest themselves in round 1, round 2, and so on. Levels. He further postulated that the fundamental categories personality and matter manifest themselves more than once in one and the same round with the subject. The manifestations of fundamental category within a round is said to be its level 1 facet in the round. Principles of facet sequence. Ranganathan formulated 4 principles of facet sequence: world picture principles, whole organ principles, cow cup principles, and actant, action, actor, tool principles. These principles guide us in deciding the sequence of facets which may appear in a co-subjects. Principles of helpful sequence. To achieve a helpful sequence of entities in an array, Ranganathan formulated 8 principles of a helpful sequence, and these are: principles of ladder in time, principles of ladder in evolution, principles of spatial contiguity, principles for quantitative measure, principles of increasing complexity, principles of canonical sequence, principles of literary warrant, principles of alphabetical sequence. Canons of classification. Ranganathan provided a completely new direction to the concept of classification originally formulated by Sayers. Ranganathan formulated 43 canons and grouped them into 3 plans of work. Number 1, canon for idea plan, 15 canons, canons for verbal plans, 4 canons, and canons for notational plan, 24 canons. Canons for idea plan, 15 canons. The 15 canons for idea plan are further grouped into canons of characteristics, number 4, succession of characteristics, number 3, canons for array, number 4, canons for chain, number 2, canon for phyletary sequence, number 2. Canons for verbal plan. The 4 canons for verbal plan deal with the language and terminology aspects in a scheme of classification. The 4 canons are: Canon of Context, Canon of Enumeration, Canon of Currency, Canon of Reticence. Canon for notational plan. These have been further grouped into Basic Canon, number 12, Mnemonics, number 5, Growing Universe, number 4, and Book Classification, number 3.